The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled every seat, their cameras flashing like lightning. The smell of fear and anger hung in the air. Everyone's eyes were fixed on one person, the man in the orange jumpsuit. His hands were cuffed, but his face carried an unsettling calm. Then, as the judge read out the charges, something strange happened. He smiled. It wasn't a nervous smile or one of regret. It was cold, slow and deliberate, the kind that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The crowd gasped. A woman in the front row began to cry. Even the judge paused for a moment, looking unsure how to continue. No one could understand why he did it, why he would smile after doing something so unthinkable. The air was heavy with questions. What kind of person could do what he did, and then smile like that? That's when the prosecutor stepped forward and said, "Let's begin with what happened that night." It all started 6 months earlier in a quiet town called Cedarville, a place where everyone knew everyone. People left their doors unlocked, kids played in the streets until sunset, and nothing bad ever really happened there, until Ethan Cole moved in. Ethan was a quiet man in his early 30s, tall, with dark hair and a face that never gave away much. He'd come to Cedarville from Chicago, saying he wanted a fresh start. He rented a small blue house on the corner of Maple Street, right next to the Parkers, a friendly couple with a teenage daughter named Lily. Lily was 16, cheerful, and always said hello to everyone she met. At first, Ethan seemed polite but distant. He didn't talk much, just nodded or waved when someone greeted him. The neighbors didn't mind, they figured he was just private. But soon, small things started to feel off. The mailman noticed that Ethan would stand by his window for hours, just watching the street. The Parker's dog would bark whenever it passed his house, even when nothing was there. And Lily once told her mom that she saw Ethan in the park, at midnight, just sitting on a swing staring into the dark. Then one day Lily went missing. It was a Saturday morning when Mrs. Parker realized her daughter hadn't come home from a friend's house the night before. They called the police. The entire town joined the search. Volunteers combed through the woods, the lake, and every empty house nearby. Nothing. Ethan didn't join the search. When officers knocked on his door, he said calmly, "I don't know the girl that well." But there was something strange in his eyes, something that made Officer Daniels uneasy. He noted it down just in case. 3 days later, the town woke up to breaking news. A hiker found something by the old quarry, a red backpack torn at the corner with Lily Parker's name stitched inside. As the police sealed off the area, Officer Daniels noticed a small trail of footprints leading toward the trees, and one of them matched the size of Ethan Cole's boots. That was the moment everything changed. The quiet town of Cedarville was about to uncover a secret darker than anyone could imagine. And that night, as the police cars filled Maple Street, lights flashing red and blue, Ethan stood in his doorway watching. For a brief second, before they put the cuffs on him, he smiled. The whole town was awake that night. Red and blue lights bounced off every window as neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering in disbelief. No one could believe that Ethan, the quiet man who always kept to himself, was now being dragged out in handcuffs. Mrs. Parker screamed when she saw him. "Where is my daughter?" she cried, trying to push past the officers. But Ethan didn't even flinch. He just turned his head slightly, his eyes cold and empty. "You'll find her," he said softly before being pushed into the back of the police car. At the Cedarville Police Department, the interrogation began. Ethan sat still in the metal chair, hands cuffed, staring at the table. Officer Daniels and Detective Harris took turns asking questions. "Where were you on Friday night?" "At home," Ethan replied calmly. "Anyone who can confirm that?" He shook his head. "No. I live alone." The detective leaned forward. "Ethan, we found Lily's backpack near the quarry. We also found boot prints matching yours. You want to explain that?" Ethan tilted his head, thinking for a moment, then said, "Lots of people wear boots." That answer chilled both officers. His voice didn't shake, not even once. It was as if he didn't care at all. Meanwhile, the town spiraled into panic. Parents kept their children inside, stores closed early, and the news reporters camped outside the station waiting for updates. Everyone wanted to know what happened to Lily. Then, 2 days later, something horrifying surfaced. A fisherman at Cedar Lake called 911 after finding something floating near the shore, something wrapped in a dark garbage bag. When police arrived, they opened it and froze. Inside was a piece of torn clothing, a phone, and a silver bracelet engraved with the word Lily. The medical examiner confirmed what everyone feared: it belonged to Lily Parker. Ethan was charged immediately. The town wanted justice. Some even wanted revenge. But Ethan just sat in his cell, silent, emotionless. He didn't cry, didn't yell, he just stared at the wall as if he was waiting for something. At the first court hearing, the crowd was so large they had to bring extra chairs. Reporters shouted questions, flashbulbs went off non-stop. Mrs. Parker sat in the front row, holding a framed photo of her daughter, tears streaming down her face. When Ethan was brought in, everyone went quiet. He stood tall, hands cuffed, eyes steady. The judge asked him if he understood the charges: kidnapping, assault, and first-degree murder. That's when it happened again. He smiled. The same cold, slow smile that made even the bailiff take a step back. It wasn't the smile of a man who regretted anything. It was the smile of someone who knew something no one else did. The courtroom erupted. Mrs. Parker screamed, "You monster!" as deputies restrained her. The judge ordered silence, but the damage was done. The entire room was in chaos. The prosecutor leaned toward Ethan and asked quietly, "Why are you smiling?" Ethan looked up, eyes glinting under the lights, and said, "Because you haven't found everything yet." The words sent a chill through everyone present. Detective Harris, who had been standing at the back, rushed out of the courtroom immediately and called the station. He ordered the search teams to go back to the quarry, this time to dig deeper. Hours later, as the night settled over Cedarville, a team of officers uncovered something buried near the quarry, something that changed the case entirely. A second backpack. And inside they found something that no one expected. The second backpack looked almost identical to Lily's, same size, same color, but when the officers opened it, their flashlights froze on something different. Inside were several photographs, each showing a different girl. Some were smiling at school, others walking home, completely unaware that someone had been watching them. On the back of each photo was a date, and all the dates were from different towns. Detective Harris's stomach dropped. "This isn't the first time," he whispered. The discovery changed everything. They realized Ethan Cole wasn't just a quiet newcomer. He had a history, one that stretched far beyond Cedarville. The FBI joined the case, digging into old files, missing persons reports, and unsolved disappearances. Piece by piece, a terrifying pattern appeared. Every town Ethan had lived in had one missing girl. Every time he left right after the search went cold. Meanwhile, in jail, Ethan still showed no emotion. He read books, asked for coffee, and smiled whenever the guards walked by. It was as if he was enjoying the chaos he had created. But deep down, Detective Harris knew something was off. Something still didn't add up. On the morning of the final court hearing, the courtroom was silent. The whole country was watching now. News stations played the story of the smiling man of Cedarville on every channel. Mrs. Parker sat in the front row again, her hands trembling. She wanted to look strong, but the pain was too deep. When Ethan was brought in, that same haunting smile returned. It was faint this time, almost like he knew the end was coming. The prosecutor presented the evidence: Lily's bracelet, Ethan's boots, the fingerprints on the backpack, and now the photographs that tied him to 5 other missing girls. It was overwhelming. The jury only needed 2 hours before returning with their decision. "Guilty," the foreman said. The courtroom erupted in tears and whispers. Ethan stood motionless as the judge read the sentence: life without parole. Everyone thought it was over. But then, as the guards came to take him away, Ethan turned his head toward the gallery. His eyes locked on Mrs. Parker. And he smiled again. "You'll never find where she really is," he whispered. The room fell into chaos. Reporters shouted, officers rushed forward, and Mrs. Parker screamed, "What do you mean? Tell me." But Ethan said nothing else. He was dragged away, that same cold grin frozen on his face. Days later, the FBI continued searching the quarry, the forest, and even Ethan's house, hoping to find Lily's remains. They uncovered old notebooks, maps with marked locations, and recordings of different towns he had visited, but Lily's body was never found. The case closed officially a month later, though Cedarville never truly healed. The Parkers eventually moved away, unable to live near the house that reminded them of their daughter. The blue house on Maple Street still stands, empty and silent. People say they sometimes see a light flicker in the window at night, even though no one lives there. And as for Ethan Cole, he remains in prison serving life. But every time his name is mentioned, one question still haunts everyone who remembers that day in court. Why did he smile? Some say it was because he enjoyed seeing everyone afraid. Others believe he smiled because he knew something the world never would. And somewhere deep in the dark corners of that quiet prison cell, if you listen closely enough, you can still hear him laughing.